Hello guys, in this video we are going to talk about limits in Make, and we are going to be focusing on two important topics. The first one will be about getting the true blueprint size and understanding what are the differences between exported blueprint, between the size of the scenario shown in the DevTool extension, and between the actual size of the scenario which is stored to our servers. And then the second important topic will be about the maximum number of bundles produced by different types of modules. Also keep in mind that there is a long list of various limits below this video, so make sure to read it through. And also keep in mind that these limits can change in future, but we'll do our best to keep these limits updated here. So let's go and let's look at the first example. So as you can see here, I have this beautiful scenario and it has around 200 modules. And one of the common questions which we get over and over is, how many modules can your scenario have? And unfortunately, there is no simple answer to that, because the total size of the scenario depends on two things. The first one is simply the number of modules, but the second factor is the apps which are used within your scenario, because on average, modules from one app can be bigger or significantly bigger than modules from another app. So here we have this scenario, and let's start by exporting the scenario blueprint. So I'm going to export it now, and I'm going to store it to my hard drive. Here we can see that the exported blueprint is 4 megabytes. And if you remember the DevTool video, I've mentioned there that the total size of your scenario can be up to 2 megabytes. But it's not the blueprint size which matters, it's something else. The size which matters is actually what we store to our servers when you save your scenario, either via the save button or by pressing Ctrl S on your keyboard. I told you that the approximate size can be easily retrieved from the DevTool extension. So let's see what the DevTool extension says about this scenario. So I'm going to press F12 on my keyboard, and I'm going to head over to the extension. Then I'm going to go to Tools, and then to get the blueprint size. And let's see. So the DevTool extension is saying that the approximate size of the scenario is 473 kilobytes. And if you remember, I said that we usually add around 100 to 300 kilobytes on the top of this number when we really save the scenario to our servers. So now the obvious question is how to get the true size of the scenario. And for that, you can simply go to Network, and then you need to save the scenario at least once. And then you need to locate the scenario ID, which appeared after saving it, and then you enter it. Then you go to Headers, and then you are looking for content length. And this is the number in bytes, which is the true size of the scenario which is being stored to our servers. So this scenario is 603 kilobytes. So compared to the number shown in the DevTool extension, which was 473, this is 603. So we are adding roughly 130 kilobytes on the top of the DevTool number. So when the limit is 2 megabytes, I still have 1.4 to go. So in theory, I could make this scenario 3 to 4 times larger. Let's look at another example now, and let's open a supposedly smaller scenario, which at the end will be bigger in terms of kilobytes. So here we have another scenario, which is still fairly large, but it doesn't have that many modules as the previous scenario. So let's start by exporting scenario blueprint. As we did last time, I'm going to save it. So I'm going to call it V2. Then here in the folder on my hard drive, we can see that this scenario is already slightly bigger in terms of its JSON size. So it's 4.3 megabytes compared to the previous 4.2. But let's look at the numbers which really matter. So let me open the DevTool extension again. So F12 on my keyboard. Integromat, Tools, get blueprint size, and let's run it. Here we can see that things get interesting, because this scenario is already over 1.1 megabytes in size. So it's already significantly bigger than the previous scenario, which had way more modules in it. And now let's look at the accurate number. So I'm going to go to network again, save the scenario, find its ID, and identify content length. And we can see that this scenario is already 1.37 megabytes in size. So it's significantly bigger than the previous scenario, which had way more modules. And of course, if this number is getting seriously close to 2 million, you are going to be in trouble. So you will need to make your scenario smaller by removing a few modules, for example, or you may need to break it up into several smaller scenarios. And the last learning is that what you see may not always matter that much. So if you think that a scenario is getting too big because it has many modules, you might be wrong. And it's always best to check its size, either via DevTool extension, which is close enough, or you can always get the accurate size via network and headers in your browser. And that's it for the scenario sizes. And the last topic I want to talk about is about working with list or search modules, which allow you to run API calls with no filters. So the API or the app which you are working with is providing paginated results. There are certain limits on the number of results which you will get in Make. So for example, if you have a CRM with 100,000 leads and the CRM works on paginated basis and you call list all leads from that CRM in Make, you will get the max number of 3,200 records because we cannot simply allow you to download like 100,000 or 1 million leads. You have to keep in mind that Make is not a BI or ETL platform to shuffle large data around, and therefore we have to implement some limits. Another issue might be the fact that even the app or the API itself may have some limits. So for example, you can only list X number of latest deals, maybe 1,000, 2,000, etc. So my best advice I can give here is that when you really need to list all your objects from an app and the number of those objects is fairly high, make sure to test it out and make sure to understand where the limit is. So for example, you can run a list module and then put a numeric count aggregator behind it to get the total number of those results and see whether you are really getting everything or not. And if you are not getting everything, there might be a way around those limits via repeaters. So you could like repeat your calls X number of times and then you can aggregate the results back. But keep in mind that it's always a good idea to test whether you are getting all the results which you would expect from your search or list modules. Let's look at 3 real-life examples which can happen. And let's start with the best case scenario. So I have a spreadsheet and I have 6,000 rows on the spreadsheet. And let's say I need to get all the rows with Make, and I know that this API is not paginated at all, so the only limit within Make which can prevent me from getting all the results can be the length of the max HTTP call in the background, which is 40 seconds. So I will now switch to Make and run my very simple scenario, and I will try to get all these rows into Make. So this is the scenario. It's very simple. It's just search rows, and there is not much in it. I'm just getting all the rows where the row number exists. And let's see how it goes. Okay, so that was quick. Let's see what we got. And we can indeed see that I got all the results from the spreadsheet. I'm just getting 599 results because the first row is taken as a header. So far so good. No issues here with the spreadsheet. And as I said, this API is not paginated. So the only true limit which can prevent you from grabbing all those rows is the timeout on the API call, which we are making in the background, which is 40 seconds. Okay, so let's move to another example. So in this example, we will look at getting paginated results. And for that, I will be using justCall and listCalls module, the numeric aggregator, and set variable. So in the justCall module, I am trying to get up to 10,000 calls and I know that this account is actually holding around 10,000 calls, then I will be simply counting the call IDs, and then at the end I will be storing the result of this count into a test variable here. I'm also going to open the DevTool extension to see all the calls which are happening in the background. So F12 on the keyboard, let's navigate to Integromat and to Livestream. And let's start running the scenario. So now the scenario is running. It's going to run for a while. It will take around 3 to 4 minutes. So I'm going to let it run and I will be back shortly. While the scenario is running, we can see that all the API calls getting the paginated results are continuously being listed here as they happen. And when I enter, for example, this call, we can see that this particular call was getting 100 results per page, and it was getting the results from page number 2. If I randomly select this one, we can see that this call is still getting 100 results per page, and this current page is number 8. So overall, we will have 32 calls at the end here, because as I said, in Make, the max number of bundles returned by a module returning paginated results is 3,200. So finally, the scenario finished running, and we can see that at the end, we really got just 3,200 results. There is obviously more calls in our test just call account than that, and despite the fact I set the limit to 10,000, I still got just 3,200 results. Let's look at the third example where I will be listing records from Salesforce, and then I'll be using the same logic of just counting certain variables coming from the preceding module and then setting it as result here. So in case of Salesforce, there is a limit on the API side already, and Salesforce will only give you 2,000 results as maximum. So no matter what I set in the Salesforce module here, for example, in my case, I just set 100,000 results, I will still get maximum of 2,000 results from this module. Let's run the scenario and see for ourselves. Okay, 2,000 results. So despite the fact that Make would allow us to get up to 3,200 results, because of Salesforce API, we are only allowed to get 2,000 results. So this situation can sometimes happen as well. So to wrap up this section, I just have to stress out that when you really need to get all the records, you should test whether our list or search modules are actually giving you all the records. And if not, maybe you can use Repeater to make your own API calls via Make an API call modules within that app to truly get all the results which you need from that particular API. And this is the end of limits in Make. I've only talked about a few common topics. However, make sure to check out all the listed limits below the video. This is also the end of Level 4 video series. Let me first say a big thank you to Manuel for producing so many great videos in a very short time. I hope you guys enjoyed the training, and I also hope that you have learned something new, because we've presented a lot of tricks which are not so obvious in Make. Stay tuned for more content in future, and good luck with your Level 4 certification. And finally, let me pass the word to Manuel.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you for your great preparation and efforts in making this training possible. It was truly a pleasure to collaborate with Make in creating these training lessons for all of you. I appreciate the opportunity to share my knowledge with you all and hope you've gained a lot of knowledge and insights from this training. Have fun with the final challenge to earn your certificate for this course. It will not be an easy one. And I look forward to seeing you all in the communities and connecting with you. If you see me around, don't hesitate to say hi. Once again, thank you all for your attention and participation. It was great having you in this training.